Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's review we're going to be taking a look at the newly released Transformers Earthrise Voyager class Thrust. Finally we can complete our original set of cone heads and add Thrust to our collection. It seems as if though we have waited an eternity for this figure to get announced, let alone to be released, and I've got to say that judging by how he looks in the packaging, he could potentially be the best cone head yet. Thrust has always been my favourite cone head design, so I certainly am really looking forward to cracking this figure open. Now unfortunately Thrust here does mark the end for the Transformers Earthrise line. I do believe that this is the last scheduled release for Earthrise. Of course we do have some of the Galactic Odyssey collections, however they are really a part of their own subline, whereas Thrust here is directly linked in with the main Earthrise line despite him being an exclusive in some parts of the world. So that is rather unfortunate. However, with concluding Earthrise, Kingdom shall come upon us, so be sure to stay tuned to the channel for all upcoming Kingdom reviews. But taking a quick look here at the packaging, you can see that we've got an amazing window view display here of the character, really presenting him rather nicely. Transformers Earthrise, he is indeed a continuation of the Cybertronian villains subline, which I believe was what the original Seekers were, as well as what the Decepticon clones were, so that is quite nice to actually tie this figure into some of the other lines. As we take a look here at the side of the packaging, once again the continuation does continue, as this looks to me as if it is a direct continuation from the box art battle sequence that we got on the Ironhide and Prowl pack, as well as what we got on the Dirge and Ramjet pack, and I think that the box art there looks splendid. As we take a look here at the back of the packaging, we've got an image of Thrust in robot mode, as well as here in his jet mode, Seeker Elite, and then finally taking a look here at the tremendous Transformers Earthrise artwork. Of course we've got the Autobots, the Decepticons, as well as the Quintessons, and taking a very quick look here at the top of the box, the Decepticon insignia with Galvatron floating into the abyss. So without further ado, let's crack Thrust open and see what awaits us inside. And so here we have Thrust opened up and out of the packaging, posed alongside both Ramjet and of course Dirge. And for those of you who were a fan of the previously released Coneheads as well as the Earthrise Starscream, I believe you're going to have an absolute field day here with Thrust. He is, in my opinion, the best use that we have gotten out of this mold so far, and honestly I'm just thrilled that we can finally add some updated representations of the Coneheads into our collections. It is just unfortunate that they don't come as part of a free pack, as far as Hasbro's strategy is concerned, I'm really puzzled as to why they decide to release two of a set of three in a pack and then release the third one on its own single release once again as an exclusive. To me that is just completely mind-boggling, especially when the characters are as popular as the Coneheads, and of course we even saw it with the Earthrise Seekers, Starscream, Thundercracker and Skywarp, so it really to me is baffling. But nonetheless, for those of you who have either of these two characters, you'll pretty much know what to expect here with Thrust. However, I'm just in love with the mold changes as well as the overall colour scheme. Taking a look here at Thrust's head sculpt, you can see that as far as I'm aware, it is the exact same sculpt as what we got here with Ramjet. So unlike Dirge, who had a slightly different expression, they have just decided to give him a solemn head. However, I've got to say the detailing as well as the yellow used for the paint apps certainly does bring this character to life. There has been multiple times where I've actually mistaken the yellow paint apps for light piping. It is that well done. You can also see that we've got the same metallic gunmetal used for the face that we saw on the other two Coneheads, with this black section painted and sculpted really nicely here at the top, obviously to resemble the iconic Conehead look. I also do really love the details that we've got on these wing sections here on the sides of Thrust's head, and an area where I must correct myself is that this entire torso section is indeed an entirely new sculpt. For those of you who did watch my original Conehead review, I did say that it was the same sculpt as Starscream's Thundercracker and Skywarp. However, many of you were quick to correct me that it is indeed a new sculpt, and I do apologise for not pointing that out in the review. You can see that these sections are a lot narrower when compared to the Starscream mold, and personally, once again, I think that that is a really nice mold change. You can see this entire region has been completely decked out in some phenomenal sculpt work. If I had any critiques with this figure, it's that I maybe would have liked them to have altered the colour of plastic used here for the cockpit, and that is also an area of which I have criticism with the other two Coneheads as well. Personally, I maybe would have rather it been a darker colour scheme, maybe black, or if they would have just left it clear, but the orange does do a good enough job. We do get the same null rays as what we've seen on the previous Seekers, however the sculpt work on those two have also come out really nicely, and all of the colour you see here is indeed moulded in plastic. As we take a look here down to the lower sections of the legs, you can see that we've got some amazing details here on the knee pads with the yellow, red and purple, and not forgetting the white, and I think that all of the details on this have come out incredibly crisp and precise, especially for an area of which has so much going on for it. As we take a look here down to the shins, you can see some really nice sculpt and paintwork, and one of the new retooled areas that we do get on this figure is indeed this entire section. Now, the entire leg assembly is just a direct carryover from what we got with these two Coneheads. It is merely just just this section which has been pegged on. This is non-articulated, so you are unable to hinge this back and forth. However, I wouldn't really see why you'd want to do that, as this is accurate to his original character design, and I love that they have placed the Decepticon insignias on either sides of these as well. Of course, the major mold change that we do have with this figure is the set of wings that we do have here on the back. Now, these can actually be altered in order to give you a slightly lower look or a slightly more raised look. Personally, I prefer to pose them in an orientation of which looks like this, and I also love the detail that we've got going on there for the rotor blades. Just taking a look here from the front perspective, you can see that they haven't skimped out on the paint or sculpt work, so the front is painted, as so is the back. And just to demonstrate how this would look if you were to lower them, you can bring this section here all the way down and basically sit it in the orientation that you would if you were to transform him into the jet mode. So if you wanted to have them slightly lower on the figure, that is something that you can certainly do. Or if you wanted to have a drastic different look for this character, you could bring this section here all the way around and actually reverse those so that they are more in keeping with the design of Starscream. However, you will be unable to actually utilize the hinge joint, as it only hinges forwards and not backwards. So I personally believe that they have always been designed to sit this way, as of course you can then hinge this section here back in order to accommodate for some of the poses that you may decide to have the figure in, or if you just wish to get them out of the way. In terms of articulation, of course, we do get the ball joint there at the head, as well as the hinge joints here for the arms forwards and backwards, as well as here out to the sides. We do get full 360 rotation here at the bicep, as well as a 90-degree bend there at the elbow. No wrist rotation nor waist rotation. However, this front plate here can hinge out of the way in order to accommodate for the range of motion kicking forwards, as well as back. We can also hinge out to the sides. Full 360 rotation here at the thigh, as well as a 90-degree bend here at the knee. And then finally, taking a look here at the feet, these can indeed pivot side to side. So as far as robot mode is concerned, I think that Hasbro have pretty much nailed the overall design here for Frost, and as mentioned earlier on in the review, he is for sure my favourite Seeker to date. And here for a very quick Earthrise Seeker size comparison, here we have Frost compared to every other Seeker that has been released for Earthrise so far. And just to show you that comparison that I was mentioning earlier on in the review in regards to the chest units, you can see that here for the cone heads, it is a lot narrower when compared here to the slightly larger version that we did get on the Starscream mold. And of course, these sections here are also completely different to the sections that we did get here on the Starscream mold. So once again, I do apologise for overlooking that in my original set of conehead reviews, and I hope that this review here will just clear up some of the confusion that I may have caused. But just overall, I just am absolutely in love with how these Seekers have all turned out. The Earth forms for me have always been my preferred look, whilst the Cybertronian versions for the main trio of Seekers, Starscream, Thundercracker and Skywarp, were nice. There is nothing better in my opinion than getting them in their traditional Earth mode looks, and to get the coneheads introduced into the collection, I am just absolutely loving it. Personally though, I wouldn't mind betting that Hasbro are actually going to re-release the coneheads in order to better match their appearance from the upcoming Netflix show, where it does appear as if though they are going to have Tetrajet alt modes very similarly to what we got for the first set of Seekers in the Transformers Siege toy line. And so turning to the transformation here for Frost, of course it is pretty much identical to what we got with some of the previous coneheads. So to begin with, remove the null rays, then take this section here and bring it all the way over the top of the original head and just snap that nice and securely into place. We can then take these sections here, and of course you're going to want to hinge this section here out, take the wrist with that, hinge that back over, and then this section will shoot over the top and will snap nice and securely into place, and then you can just clip that in there. Also, of course, repeat the exact same process here on the opposite side. So take the wrist with that, hinge that up, take this section and basically tuck that under there and snap all of that in accordingly. We can then take the chest unit, and I actually like to take these pieces here, apply a little bit of pressure so that we have a better time of actually removing this entire chest unit, as of course, for those of you who have watched all of my Seeker reviews, you'll know that this is a major area of concern of mine, as I just do not see these tabs holding up over time, especially if you do decide to just completely yank them out of place. So be sure to take your time with this. Take the nose cone, rotate this section here all the way around, and of course bring it to the back, snap that in there nice and securely. We can then turn our attention here to this side, just collapse the arms in, and of course repeat the same process. Bring this section here over the top, of course clip that in there nice and securely. We can then turn our attention here to the shins, bring this section down, bring this section here down. I then like to compress the toes in like so. You're then going to want to disengage this back tab. So just to show you, there is a tab in there that is pegged onto the back section of this. Just unlock that, and of course unlock this section. Bring these two halves here together, and then it is merely just a matter of compressing the thighs into the lower sections here of the legs, snapping them in, and then bringing these sections and attaching them on the top. Bring these sections here down, and there are some tabs here that will indeed peg into some tiny slots here and here, so just snap that also into place. We can then of course bring back the null rays, and these will peg onto the underside here of the jet mode, just where the rotor blades are. So snap them in there also nice and securely. And here we have Thrust fully transformed up into his jet mode, and once again he is my favorite looking jet out of all of these Seekers. I'm just absolutely loving how the color scheme and the overall design here has turned out, especially these newly tooled pieces that we have got here for the rotor blades. I think that the sculpt work as well as the paint work has come out so nicely, and I love the attention to detail for the Decepticon insignias here on either side. The figure has actually been painted rather nicely. This entire assembly here is indeed picked out in a nice red, and I'm a massive fan of how close they've managed to get the painted red to the actual colour of moulded in red plastic. I think that that works really nicely. Once again, I'm not a massive fan of the orange cockpit, especially when put here with the red and black colour scheme. Personally, I think that it looks slightly out of place and a little bit washed out. If this was a transparent piece or if it was just a complete jet black piece, personally I think that that maybe would have looked slightly better, but you can see that of course we have got some nice interior detailing going along there, as well as some fantastic panel lining detailing as well. Taking a look here at these back sections, you can see that as these are the newly sculpted pieces, they certainly do help in order to set Thrust apart from some of the other cone heads. And as this is the same mold as Starscream, unfortunately we do have the massive hollow gap which you can stick your finger through in the jet mode, but for the most part I think that it has turned out rather nicely. Certainly not the worst jet mode that I have ever taken a look at. And of course, for a comparison, let's bring out here Dirge, and then of course we'll bring out here Ramjet for a jet mode size comparison. So here we have all of the cone heads from the original Transformers Generation 1 series, and I've got to say that they all look absolutely terrific. It maybe would be better if I did give you a comparison which looks something along the lines of this. It will be rather difficult to actually balance them all, but you can see that all of them are unique in their own ways, and I do like how they did go the extra mile to alter some of the wing pieces in order to be faithful to the source material and match the on-screen character models. And so some final thoughts. Personally for me, I think that this figure here has turned out really nicely. Of course, as mentioned throughout this review, for those of you who have Starscream or any of the other Seekers from Earthrise, you're going to pretty much know what to expect as far as the articulation is concerned, the engineering that has gone into the transformation, as well as the overall scale and size of these figures, and all of the same critiques that we have seen with the previous Seeker molds are still here with Thrust. But personally, I am easily able to look over those, especially as this is now the 6th reuse of the mold, and I think that it is potentially the best. I love the newly sculpted pieces that Hasbro have given this character, especially where those wing sections are concerned, and you do actually have quite a bit of variety in how you actually decide to pose them around on the character. I also do like the newly sculpted pieces that we have on the lower leg section of Thrust, and I think that the colour scheme has come out so nicely. Maybe I would have liked them to have given all of the cone heads a slightly darker grey tone, where the black is indeed apparent in order to better match what we got from the character models, but overall I think that they are pretty much spot on, and as far as mainline releases go, I think that this is the best representation that we have gotten for this set so far. So if you were able to pick up the original Seeker Elite 2-pack, then Thrust here is certainly going to be a must-have for any Transformers collector, and I would recommend that if you see him, that you snap him up immediately, as I do not think that this figure is going to be one that will hang around for a long time, especially with Kingdom up and coming. I think that you're going to see places maybe not have stocked him as much like we've seen with some of the previous lines. When there are new lines coming in, they tend not to stock the lost batches of older waves in as higher quantities, so if you can find him, I recommend picking him up immediately. I hope you enjoyed this review. Be sure to let me know down in the comment section below on what you thought of both the review and the figure itself, and whether or not you will be adding Thrust to your collection. I thank you all for watching, and until my next review, I'll see you then.